What up guys, welcome back to the garage. Today we're gonna be picking right back up on my Ford 8.8 rear end. We're gonna be actually cutting and shortening this thing today. To start off though, we need to cut everything off of this thing. All of the spring perches and the mounting points for the sway bar, all this stuff has to come off. But before I do anything, I wanna kind of clean this thing up really quick and then we'll get started. I got this thing as cleaned up as I'm gonna get it for the time being. This thing's gonna get cleaned probably multiple times. Before we get started, I want to mention that this most certainly is my first time ever doing something like this. I've never done like rear pinion work, or like I've never taken the internals of one of these out or installed them. I do know that there's shims involved and you have to check clearances and you have to put like paint on the teeth and you have to spin it and check the engagement and the amount of engagement. Like there's a lot involved. That's something I've never done before. So for that reason, I am going to be leaving all of this assembled. Of course, if you, for instance, are doing this to your rear axle and you're watching this video to like learn something from me in some kind of way and you are confident enough in removing this and knowing that you'd be able to put it back in properly, then you can do so. Because I feel like that would probably be the best thing to do, is to just get all this stuff out of the way, because we have a lot of cutting, grinding, and welding and stuff that we gotta do. And of course, you are gonna get stuff inside of here. Like you're gonna get debris and fragments of metal and stuff all inside of the axle tubes and everything that's gonna have to be cleaned out after we're done. To get all these moving parts and everything out of the way, I feel like would be better. But me personally, I don't wanna open up a can of worms that I'm not gonna be able to get myself out of, you know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna leave all that in there, but I will most certainly be cleaning this thing once again very well, inside and out, once we are all done, because I wanna get all the crap out of the inside, for one, and for two, we're also gonna paint it, of course. So with that disclaimer, moving on, what we need to do is actually cut everything off of these axle tubes. So the spring perches need to go, and these mounts right here where the stock sway bar bolted up needs to go. I am going to leave these little tabs for the brake lines because I would like to reuse those. First, we're gonna go ahead and unbolt this stuff and get it out of our way. I left it on there for the pressure washing, so it got clean too. But now I can go ahead and get that stuff out of the way. So this is the driver's side. I am gonna go ahead and mark this stuff, so later it saves me a little bit of confusion, you know? I'm sure it'd be easy to figure out, but later on, instead of trying to figure it out, I just know passenger side, driver's side. It's as easy as marking it. So these things, it looks to me like they're through bolted. So there's 4 bolts right here. There's a head on this side, and then there's a nut on this side. So whenever it comes to cutting these brackets off, obviously our cutting wheel cannot cut in a circle. So what I'm gonna be doing is just making a bunch of straight cuts, basically in a V. And I'm gonna try my hardest to stay away from the axle tube itself, because we don't wanna create dips in the axle tube or cut into it. We just wanna take these brackets off. Once we get the majority of this bulk cut away, then I can come back and whatever's left along with the weld, I can just grind it down with a flap disc and get it all nice and smooth. However it is you get these off, the most important part is just to keep your cutoff wheel out of your axle tube. Good Lord, man. My whole garage is completely filled with grinding dust already. And that was only 2 of the 4 brackets. We're halfway done. Sway bar brackets are cut off. I went ahead and ground the excess metal all the way down to where it's smooth and stripped all the paint off. I did everywhere that I can see with the axle in this position, front and back. So got all the paint and everything off because we are gonna need a weld on this. We need to strip all that down. So now I need to go ahead and roll this thing over the other way and do the exact same thing with our axle purchase, and then just finish getting all this paint ground off, and we can move on to the next step. Finally got us a whiteboard for the damn garage so I can stop drawing little pictures on pieces of paper. This thing was 10 bucks at Walmart. Anyhow, I went ahead and I drew a rear housing up here, and these are all the measurements that we need to figure out. So the blue line, this purple right here, and then the green, I separated everything in different colors, bro. Trying to stay organized around here. What can I say? So we need to find the measurement of the short tube versus the long tube so we can find out how much we have to cut out. And whenever I measure this, I'm gonna be going from this lip right here of the differential housing. So from here to the outside lip of this. So this area right here is actually machined flat because this is, you know, where your brakes and everything all bolts up. So this front side of this is actually machined. The back side of it isn't necessarily machined. So it is a possibility that if you pull your measurements from this housing over to here, they could be slightly off from one side to the other. So you want to measure off the machine surface for sure. We got to pull a measurement of the short side and a measurement of the long side. Subtract measurement of the short side from the long side, and what we have remaining, that is our measurement in which we have to actually cut out of the long side. So once we figure out these two measurements, subtract them, we will get the measurement that we need to cut out. Now the position of where it is we are going to cut is going to depend on this measurement up here. So this green line right here is going to represent the spring perch. And in order to get that measurement, I'm gonna have to pull it off of the axle that is actually on the blazer. We have to find out where our spring perches are going to have to mount in order to match with the blazer, because this is going into the blazer. We want our leaf springs to line up, right? So stay with me, pay attention. I'm gonna do a really quick crude drawing just to kind of represent what it is I'm trying to explain. So whenever we cut our long tube and take a section out, right? So once we cut that section out, then we gotta bump the two together and then re-weld it back together. So basically, once we do so, they're gonna be bumped up to one another like this. We want to find where our spring perch is gonna be centered on the axle tube so that we are capable of welding our spring perch to where that weld of the axle tube is going to be in the center. And if it's not obvious, the reason why we're gonna do that is for strength. So whenever I cut this tube and I weld the two pieces together, I'm gonna have a weld going across here. And then if I take my axle perch and put it centered over the top of that, then we have to weld this in, and then our axle perch will be welding on each side of it, just adding a little bit of strength, adding a little bit of rigidity to the section that we welded together. Measuring the short side, butting up against the differential housing to this outside machined edge, 17 3/8. And I'm gonna check it in a few different spots just to make sure. All right, same thing on the long side. Measure from the machine edge right here of the differential housing to this outside edge is 20 1/4, and I'm gonna check in a few spots. Yep. So the amount that we need to cut out is the long tube minus the short tube, which is 2 7/8 of an inch. That is the amount that we need to cut out of the long tube. So now we know how much we gotta cut out, but we don't know exactly where we gotta cut it. And that's where I gotta go and get underneath the damn blazer and figure that one out. $38 3/8 of an inch. And just to explain to you guys, just to be informative, I'm trying to be as informative with this as I possibly can be, so that if any of you guys are wanting to do this yourself, or who knows, you might be watching this video just to get some ideas or some whatever, you know what I'm saying? The reason why I'm trying to explain this stuff as well as I can put it into words, you know? This measurement here, the 38 3/8 of an inch, is the measurement of my spring perches that are on the axle that is currently on the Blazer. That is from one spring perch to the other, center to center. Now currently I cannot get a dead on measurement, so that's a rough measurement. I can't get a dead on measurement because, as you guys know, you can't necessarily measure something with a big old hump right in the center, you know what I mean? But since that axle is still installed on the Blazer, I was able to pull my measurement off of the leaf spring. So I'm not capable of getting a dead on accurate measurement of the actual leaf spring perches that are on the axle currently installed on the Blazer, but I was able to pull a measurement off the leaf spring, which had been further out like this. So that is not an exact measurement, like exact enough to know exactly where to weld my new spring perches on the 8/8 axle. So I will need to remeasure that whenever we actually take that axle out of the Blazer. We'll get a more precise measurement before we go and weld these on, but that is a good enough measurement for figuring out exactly where to place my cut. So meaning if I am off a little bit from center to center, just means that my weld might not be dead on in the center of my spring perch. It might be 1/4 of an inch this way or 1/4 of an inch this way, but either way our weld will be in the middle of our spring perch, whether it's perfectly centered or not. But now we need to figure out exactly where 38 3/8 of an inch lands on the axle. So I need to know a overall measurement of the axle the way it is right now. So I went ahead and I clamped some angle iron onto our flat machine surfaces on the end caps here. So now I can actually pull a measurement a little bit further out and get away from the center diff there. The overall width of our axle right now currently is 54 inches and 1/16, bro. Freaking 1/16. I'm not gonna worry about that 1/16 too terribly much, but we know that we have to take 2 7/8 of an inch out of this. So this measurement right here is gonna get 2 7/8 of an inch shorter than what it is now. So our overall length right now is 54 1/16. We gotta take 2 7/8 out of it, which will leave our overall length 51 3/16. All right, so bring that 51 3/16 down. 51 3/16 now minus the 38 3/8, which is the overall span of our spring perches. 38 3/8 equals 12 13/16. So of the axle's overall length, the axle itself from this end to this end minus the overall length of our spring perches is the 12 13/16. So 12 13/16 is what we're left with. Now we got to cut that number in half. I know, it's freaking wild, bro. It's a lot of math. So what we're left with is the 12 13/16. That divided by 2 is going to leave us with 6 7/30 seconds, bro. Yeah, that's a wild ass number, right? So now I can simply go over there to the axle, measure from this edge over 6 7/30 seconds of an inch, and that is the center of our spring perch, or where we make our first line where we have to cut. So I went ahead and I went around the axle tube and marked many different points. I have like 5 or 6 different points that I have marked right at 6 7/30 seconds to make sure I have a reference point going all the way around, because this is actually our cut line. So now what I'm doing, this is a reflective sticker for a trailer, man. it's really thick, you know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna wrap around the tube with this, and you gotta make sure that your edges line up so you know that this thing is square going around the tube, and then you know that you have a nice straight line going around. But I also made the multiple marks so that I can go around it and check and make sure that I'm hitting all my marks. On the freaking money there, boy! every single one of our marks are lining up. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and drag my Sharpie around that edge, leaving our cut line, and I know it's nice and straight and square, and it is 6 7/32 away from this flat surface right here. So now we got our first cut line marked. I'm gonna go ahead and slide this thing over. Since I already have this thing all squared up with the pipe, I'm just gonna slide it over here out of my way. We need to make our second mark and do the exact same thing, which is just gonna be the 2 7/8 of an inch over from the first mark. So there's both of our cut lines, bro. That is exactly 2 7/8 right there that we need to cut out. And when we do, and we butt this section up to this section, weld them together, that will also roughly be the center of where we need to weld our spring perch on. So now I'm gonna go ahead and pull a bunch of measurements, dude. I'm gonna measure this at least 2 more times, double checking the lines before I do any cutting. Because the thing is, if I screw this up, if I make this too short, then it's screwed up. And basically the whole thing is just trash. I mean, I could try to get the plug welds out and everything and try to replace the entire tube, but you get what I'm saying. I don't want to screw up. Wait! Before we do any cutting, we need to actually give ourselves a clocking reference. So I need to put a line across here so I know which way to clock this thing whenever we weld it back on. First cut done, one more cut to go. Dude, the inside of this is disgusting, bro. Got a lot of cleaning before we're gonna be able to do any kind of welding. What I got here is 3-inch C-channel, and they are 14 inches long in length. This is what we are going to be using to square the pipe up before we weld it together. Shoo! 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 Dude, that is so freaking dope, man. This is actually really exciting for me. This is my first time ever doing something like this to this extent, you know? Like, I don't know, it might seem really simple to most people, but it is a pretty big undertaking, man. And to accomplish something like this, now of course we're still not done. The most important thing I would imagine is probably making sure that I don't weld some camber or something into my rear end. Make sure it's nice and straight, but I don't know. I'm just taking my time, one little step at a time, bro. I've done tons of research on this to try to make sure to the best of my ability that this is gonna come out right. But I just kind of wanted to mock it up there and just get a visual of how it looks. I measured it and it is roughly in the neighborhood where we need to be at 17 3/8 to match that side. Of course, we do have to clean the cut up a little bit. I followed that line extremely straight as I could. We need to clean it up a little bit, make sure to get it flush, bevel that edge. But first things first is, dude, the inside of this tube is ridiculously dirty. Like, this thing is caked up. So we're most certainly gonna have to get that clean before we can do any kind of welding on this for sure. And I want to do it before we start beveling the edge because I don't want my grinder to just start contaminating the whole thing with grease. So, man, I gotta be honest with you guys, I'm not really wanting to like pressure wash this thing all out and get all crazy with it again right freaking now. So I'm just gonna try my best to get this thing cleaned up by hand. I'm taking a bunch of my Gojo wipes right here. Okay, just gonna kind of fluff them up. This is gonna be my beginning stages of getting this clean. And I have a set of really long, they're not needle nose. I honestly don't know what these are called, but anyhow, I'm just gonna clamp on to all my Gojo wipes. That's my little swab. We're gonna swab it. Maybe do some spin action while we do so. Dude, Good freaking Lord, man. Freaking look at that. Holy crap. I still have some more cleaning to do, but I'm just surprised. That's all the way down to the bare metal. I can't tell you guys enough. If you don't have a tub of these in your garage, you definitely need to get them. Carry with you to the junkyard or whatever, because these things definitely kick ass. But I'm gonna do this once with this round. I'm gonna grab some clean ones out and do this one more time, and then I'm gonna go and get like a rag of some sort and do the exact same thing, but with some acetone a couple of times till we get this thing really, really freaking clean and ready for welding. Got to do this side as well. Look at how much that's caked up in there. That's what that looked like. Freaking, dude, what is in these Gojo wipes? It's wild. Bow! There's the setup, man. So I got my C channel back on there, and I went ahead and I cleaned all this stuff one more time, and I beveled the living shit out of it. So as you can see, got a nice sized little canyon there that I can fill up with weld. But the most important part is, are we sitting at 17 1/4? So if I set it up against the housing there, measure the top, or I'm sorry, not 17 1/4, 17 3/8. So as you can see, 17 3/8, can move it to the bottom. So I have another point of reference right here. Focus. Bang, bang, 17 3/8. And then also the C channel on the top, I have butted up against the housing right here. So I can actually pull a measurement from this edge right here. So coming up here to this edge, measuring over 17 3/8, bro. Right on the money, boy. All right, now coming over here to this side, I'm gonna measure from the same 3 points down as low as I can right here. 17 3/8. Now move up. I am measuring from as many points that I possibly can. 17 3/8, and then the same thing, moving up to the top right here off the edge of my C channel. Once again, sitting at 17 3/8. So that thing is squared up. It's nice and straight. The measurement is dead on freaking perfect, bro. I'm actually stoked. Got the edges all beveled. Everything is cleaned. This thing is ready to be welded. So what I'm gonna be doing now is putting a tack here and a tack here, and then on the other side the same thing. I'm gonna do a tack and a tack, and then we are just gonna completely undo this, and I need to rotate the axle, exposing these sections that are underneath the C channel now, and then I'm gonna reclamp it up, pull all the same exact measurements, make sure everything is dead on perfect, and then do a couple of tacks again. So fucking cameras were recording the whole time. Ah, damn. I blew the breaker. I'm trying to get my heat and everything set on this piece of pipe that we cut off, so. Tacked up in all 4 spots. I went around the tape measure and checked every single bit of it. Every spot on this is dead on at 17 3/8. So as you guys know, the heat will make it move and do crazy stuff. So I gotta try to not get this as hot as I possibly can. So from tack weld to tack weld, I'm probably just going to weld about halfway, and then I'll move to the other side, do halfway, and just keep kind of jumping around. So to actually complete the area in between tack to tack, that's gonna take me twice. and letting it cool down. I'm gonna do the best that I can. As you guys know, I don't have a whole lot of experience welding, so I'm just gonna take my time, try to get it as penetrate, like try to get it as hot as I can to penetrate and get a good weld, but at the same time, hopefully not distort this damn thing. So, wish me luck, bro. Well, there it is, man. We officially have a shortened A8 rear end, a equal length rear end, if that's what you want to call it. Either way, got it done, bro. It came out really nice. I will admit my weld wasn't the prettiest. That's the reason why I didn't necessarily show it off. It didn't distort from what I can see with a tape measure. Everything is still lining up. It's dead on 17 3/8 all the way around this thing. There's one more thing that we still need to weld up though before I go ahead and close this video out, is right here where the axle tubes actually go into the differential housing. So from the factory, these are plug welded right here. And from my understanding, these plug welds have been known to fail on occasion, and you can actually twist your axle tube inside of the housing, which that's not good, right? It's kind of just a safety precaution, man, just to make sure it doesn't hurt to be safe rather than being sorry. So I'm gonna be taking this wire wheel and just going in that little crevice right there all the way around. I gotta strip all the paint and everything out of there. And I'm not gonna completely weld this thing all the way out. I'm just going to do like a, I don't know, like a 1/2 inch weld. You know what I mean? In four points all the way around it on both sides. Alright, so I'm gonna do 4 welds going around this on each side. So I'm taking that same trailer sticker that I used before and I wrapped it around the tube. Now this thing overlaps, get it nice and straight, and the point that it overlaps, I went ahead and I marked it on here. So whenever I take it off, that's what this mark is right here. That means my axle tube is exactly that long. So what I did from there, I went ahead and I folded it in half, made a little pinch mark, and then put a Sharpie mark on there. And then each half section, you fold those in half. Again, basically folding this thing into 4 parts and making a little bend in it so then I could straighten it out and put a Sharpie mark. So now what I ended up with is I have 4 evenly spaced marks on this, so I can go ahead and wrap it back around the axle tube. I already got the other side done, and what I did is I lined the first mark up with this line that's on the top that's actually in the housing, just so I know both sides are gonna be the same. And really the only reason why I'm doing this is so I know that my welds are evenly spaced all the way around, which isn't extremely important, but if you're going for looks, you just want it to, you know, look even. That's how you freaking do it. So I went ahead and I threw the axles back in just to get kind of a feel, to make sure there's like an even amount of, you know, axles sticking out in here, in which there is. Oh, I just dropped my C-clip. Anyhow, I'm just setting this stuff in here temporarily just to make sure everything still lines up and fits. But of course, it's nowhere near time to actually assemble this thing. I need to completely clean this out. I'm also kind of struggling to find C-clip eliminators utilizing the factory axles. So I can find a lot of them online, but most of what it is I'm looking at is for aftermarket axles. So I'm gonna need to call down to one of these distributors, actually get somebody on the phone, make sure I'm getting the right damn thing. But anyhow, we also still need to weld our leaf spring perches on, but as you know, we need to get that rear end out of the Blazer first so I can get a precise measurement of where it is we need to weld these things on. This is also an open diff 8.8. It's a non-LSD. I do have something on the way for fixing that, so hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll have everything that we need in the next video. We're gonna get this thing completely done, completely welded. We gotta paint it and get it installed. But for now, that's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope this helped you if you were watching this to get an idea how to shorten an 8.8 for yourself or any other axle. I'm sure this pretty much covers the process for shortening, for the most part, any axle, right? But smash the like button for me if you enjoyed it, and if you didn't, maybe you just need to lower your standards a little bit. Peace.